If there is one thing that 2023 will be remembered for, it will be the year that Daisy Dog got old. This has been hard to deal with because of our journey together and because she has taken the first difficult steps to a lower quality of life. And the question actually became, which as you can imagine was quite traumatic, is she on the edge of a lower quality of life, sufficiently lower or sufficiently lower in what might be a rapid pace of time that she'll need putting to sleep? In some ways this is the same story as to why when I was married we didn't have children. I grew up amongst 5 siblings and assumed I'd have children. Then once I was married, we just didn't. We consciously acknowledged that each of us was enough for each other and we were sufficiently selfish that we didn't see the need to pour some of that into a child. Now, if it had happened, I'm sure we'd have found it as this glorious thing, but while it was a choice, we chose not to. Subconsciously, it was probably the same with pets. We introduced hamsters, a chinchilla, and guinea pigs into the home, but there is one constant about each of these: low commitment. Then in 2014, my wife decided we needed a dog. I mean, it took some persuading, but we agreed we didn't want the effort of a puppy. That sounded like too much responsibility, right? You know, bringing it up to be how would you put it? Well-behaved dog citizen. So some of that selfish nature was still intact. So we agreed we'd investigate the dog trust and see where taking in a rescue dog might lead. I mean, initially it didn't go well. The dog we'd identified on the website when we actually got to the local dogs trust turned out to be Hannibal Lecter in small dog form. You had to keep him on a lead. He would get aggressive. It was just, Hannibal Lecter in dog form. I pretty much thought after that was it. My wife tried several times more while I was at work. I don't know how long for, how many times. It's lost in the mists of time. And then one day she found Daisy Dog gently pacing around her shelter while trying to ignore an overly enthusiastic pick-me chihuahua. As far as she was concerned, we'd found the dog. We both visited multiple times, spent time with Daisy Dogs, went through the vetting process, which, people naturally having children go through less of a vetting process than a Dogs Trust dog, and then we brought her home. It was roughly a year after that everything changed. Imagine arriving home from work, noticing your wife's car isn't on the drive. This in itself is not an indication of impending doom. Opening the front door, greeting your dog, walking into the kitchen and noticing an A4 note. You inspect the couple of sheets of A4 and discover that it is a Dear John letter from your wife of almost 20 years, saying she's done a runner. That awful combination of dealing with a sudden separation that was being mourned like a death because it was that sudden, but had to be dealt with like a divorce, sent me into a spiral that took me about 14 months to get over. And outside of my family, obviously a constant during that time was Daisy Dog. And I'm aware she's just a dog. I'm not necessarily one of these people who go, Daisy Dog is my child and all that bollocks, to be fair. But she was there when I was upset and always seemed to know. She was there when I'd wake up at night having the same recurring dream as my damn subconscious explored the unsolvable problem of why I was ghosted after 20 years of marriage, right? She was there when I spent, let's admit it, time talking to myself about what I was working through because it helped me process it. And she also helped me take steps out from under that shadow that I found myself in.
Welcome to Saturday. So I've decided to take a different approach this weekend, basically in response to me getting a bit morose on late Sunday afternoon, early evening. I thought, you know, don't sit around the house too much, try and get out and about. So this morning, I think it's about 10:15, I'm going to climb a hill. Daisy! She's pretty good, but I don't want her to wander off. You coming? That's it, good dog. Daisy dog's nearly at the top.
This started 6 years of Daisy Dog and I going on walks and hikes together. I don't think I'd have made that step if it also wasn't an adventure for Daisy Dog. I know that's weird, and I possibly would have done, but that period of my life has become so intrinsically shared with Daisy Dog, I find it hard to imagine or separate how it might have went if Daisy Dog hadn't been that ever-presence. I was conscious of Daisy Dog ageing, but it was in ways that felt natural and weren't overly worrying, right? You know, I'd find she could only do a 3-mile hike, and ideally if that was on flat ground, you know, rather than bounding up mountains like she used to do. It was the first signs of cataracts in her eyes that it didn't seem to bother her anyway. You know, it's not like she was bumping into things, or she doesn't, even now, you know, she doesn't act like she's blind, but obviously she must be struggling seeing, right? Her coat started to lose its colour. Areas that were black went to grey. She slowly lost that Rocket Raccoon and Little Wolf look that kids used to say she looked like when they encountered her. I mean, it was quite funny. You know, kids used to literally call her Rocket Raccoon and Little Wolf when they'd encounter her in the lakes and whatever else. And that was just, it felt like a natural progression and didn't seem anything to worry about. And then 2023. It seemed like age hit her like a freight train. She started sleeping a lot more. I mean, most of the day. The vet started talking about arthritis and inflammation. She started to struggle to jump on the bed and the sofa. The first sign that her legs were getting weaker. And this was followed by her having trouble on the hardwood floors. She rather suddenly lost her hearing, I felt. In that now I can literally be behind her and surprise her, right? She just doesn't hear me coming. I mean, when in the past you couldn't do anything and she knew what you were up to, right? And her cataracts are obviously now quite bad, but it's really strange. Despite the fact of having bad cataracts, she can still look out the window from the windowsill she sits on, see across the close, then across the street, and knows there's a dog. So the whole cataract situation is weird because I look at her eyes and I can't help but think she's almost blind, but I don't know how she does it. But anyway, yeah, aging kicked in 2023. And then in 2023, she fell down the stairs. I mean, she's never done that. She's always been agile, sprightly, you know, deft on her forelegs. And she fell about 25% of the way down the staircase. I still don't know to what degree the problems she has now are due to that fall or just general aging. The two are sort of linked together. But yeah, she fell down the stairs. She seemed to recover from that, but her back legs continued to cause her problems. And she reached a point, and this is where it got difficult. She reached a point where after an extended period of rest, which of course, as I've said, most of the day, she just couldn't walk for 10 minutes. And she'd get frustrated, she'd bite at her hind legs because they just wouldn't work. And that was challenging. I mean, I thought then that it was a hard time because it's the worst decision someone with a dog can face. The signs you might be on a path that might be quite a short one, to facing the decision to put your companion to sleep due to quality of life, rather than some painful mortal disease. You understand it when it's that, right? You feel like you're doing them a favour. But if you face the situation where they're all mentally there, but they just can't move around very well, if at all, that was distressing. It was distressing for quite a while, because, I didn't want to make that choice. Then, by happenstance, because you don't necessarily see the same vet every time you go to the vets, a vet put her on different painkillers. I understand they're quite strong. I don't know how strong, but so someone said, oh, that's the same type of painkiller I had when I had a back problem and they had to wean me off them. Anyway, she still sleeps a lot. She's still unsteady on her hind legs on like slippery surfaces or the hardwood, but she has stopped being unable to stand. And there was a day, I can't pin it now, because I'm making this video quite a bit after it occurred, where she'd been on those pills for maybe 2 or 3 days or a week. I took her out for a walk. And she hadn't really been bothered about walks for quite a while. And she got excited about the walk, and we went on a walk, and I don't know, and she was off. I'd almost say she was bounding around. And I must admit, almost cried in the street that day. She's still old, and I suspect walking half a mile now, maybe a mile, is about as far as she can get. She has a medical cabinet. I don't have a medical cabinet, but her quality of life has improved. She can actually jump on the sofa, though it takes her multiple times, and she can walk and enjoys a walk. Even if it is like having the equivalent of a geriatric relative and looking after them to some degree, at least it felt like I wasn't on that inevitable track, or at least it may be a bit further away. When we got Daisy Dog, it never occurred to me that she would eventually age. I don't know why that didn't factor into the decision, as we'd had numerous dogs get old, as I've grown up. I remember as well some of them getting quite ill. So it's a bit strange that I never really thought of it. The truth is, dogs seem to spend they spend a lot of time as puppies, right? And then most of their time at some sort of inconsequential age. And then suddenly, boom, they're old. And of course, we got Daisy Dog when she was 5 or 6. So she was already some way into that inconsequential age. Yeah. I never really looked that far ahead to when it could be argued from a certain point of view that Daisy Dog would be a burden, when she would restrict what I could do rather than carry me forward, and when a shadow would hang over her in a way, promising a deep sadness at a time in the future that may, hopefully still be years away, but feels, due to recent events, a bit closer. It doesn't matter though, because she was there when I needed her, so now it's my turn.